Good evening, guys, and happy Monday to all of your sunshiny faces. I was not entirely ready for it to be Monday. I ended up going to bed kind of early last night. I actually took a shower early, but then I couldn't fall asleep. I don't know why. I was watching TV and I just couldn't fall asleep, and then I finally fell asleep, sort of dozed off, and then I was like, wait, no, what just happened? Because I was so invested in the TV show I was watching, but it was I couldn't care less. It wasn't something I normally watch, so I was like, why do I care so much? And then I ended up falling asleep, sort of dozed off for a couple minutes during a commercial, and then woke back up and realized I'd missed part of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And then I don't know why, like I said, I just couldn't fall asleep. And normally I turn my TV on, but I only leave it on for an hour or so. I just have a timer set on it so that it'll turn back off, but it's hard for me to fall asleep without any sort of white noise in the background. And I've thought about maybe getting a white noise machine or something like that, but I really don't know if I'd like that, because it's constantly the same sort of thing, whereas I think I might like the rainforest noises, or something like that, but white noise, because it's kind of the same thing, I don't know if I would like that. But people kind of talking in the background or whatever, even though I turn it down really low, it just kind of has that soft kind of soothing sound. And on top of that too, I do kind of like having just a little bit of extra light before I fall asleep. And then normally too, I have my salt lamp on, because I definitely can't sleep with an overhead light on, but I definitely I feel like my salt lamp would be okay if I had it near my bed, but I have it on my desk, and so it just doesn't seem like it's quite enough light, because sometimes too I'll still be adjusting my pillows or blankets or whatever if it's pitch black in my room and I cannot see anything, so I still need just a little bit of light. And also too, because I leave my salt lamp on all the time anyway, but I like having that on just in case I have to get up in the middle of the night and I'm fumbling around and can't find the light switch or whatever. But when I'm still kind of falling asleep, I like to have a little extra light on, just so that I said, if I'm oh, I need to, I'm gonna get my water or something like that, I can still see what's going on in my room at least a little bit, without it being super overpowering, having the overhead light on, or my light next to me on, because again too, if I have it on a timer, it's going to be turned off, it'll turn itself off at a point. So like I said, I don't know why though, last night I was so exhausted, but my brain just was no, you're so tired, you have to stay awake. It didn't make any sense. I was so tired, I wanted to fall asleep so bad, but I don't know why my brain was just still wide awake and didn't want to go to sleep. It's almost to that point, it's you're so hungry that you just can't even figure out what to eat. It was the same thing too. I was so tired, it was my brain couldn't figure out how to turn itself off. And it just wanted to keep going, and I was we need to go to bed. And my brain had other ideas last night. So I ended up waking up kind of late today and didn't get to quite as much as I wanted to. I did wind up doing dishes. I did edit one vlog, because I actually had 3 edited, so I edited another one today, so now I have 4, so I can upload at least 2 of the ones that I had edited already. So like I said, I'm going to do that, but I had actually 5 that were edited, so I uploaded 2 of those. Now I have, like I said, the 4 that are edited that are not uploaded, but I did upload today. And like I said too, I did dishes. I realized I didn't get to laundry, which I wanted to do, and I also ended up watching the national championship game, which I was rooting for TCU. Also watched the Bulls game. I was rooting for the Bulls, so nothing really panned out as far as sports go today. Yesterday, all the teams that I wanted to win pretty much won in the football games yesterday, except Seattle didn't make it in the playoffs. That was the only other thing that I was kind of hoping for. But everything panned out. The Bears lost, which was awesome, and the Texans won yesterday, which was awesome. So Bears are sitting on number 1 pick, the number 1 pick. So anyways, like I said, that today just sports didn't pan out very well. So at least for who I was rooting for. One thing that I did wind up getting to, because when me and Jack were cleaning out the attic on Saturday, what I had noticed was I had a couple of boxes more of school papers that I had left in the attic that I didn't even realize were up in the attic. So I thought I went through them all, but as I told you guys, I was oh, there's still stuff that was up there that I didn't realize it was quite as messy as it was, there were still some, it's definitely 85% better, but there's still some like loose things, or also two things that are not properly where there should be. Like the school papers, I should go through and really just figure out like, okay, what do I not need anymore? This was all stuff from my sophomore year was what I found in the attic. Plus there's another bigger box. So all the sophomore year school stuff I was going through, and it was cool though, because I actually thought that I had recycled all that stuff already, because I remember this stuff was in my bedroom for the longest time, and I think when I switched bedrooms, I switched rooms and moved in here my sophomore year, and so I thought that I remember where I kept them. And then when I ended up moving my stuff into the closet in my mom's office, I think, which was like later on, like it was like in the, like, I don't know, sometime later in that, like my senior year, or like later into like the summer before my senior year or something like that, was when I finally moved my clothes in there, I think. So because I remember like my cube organizer was in here for a really long time, and I had my what's it called, or maybe I had the closet, but I didn't move the cube organizer in there until like later on. And I had all of those school papers though in that thing until I finally moved it out of here. And so, and when I did that, I could have sworn that I recycled all the papers, because it was my senior year and I was like, I don't need these papers anymore. They were all from last year. But I found them in the attic, which, like I said, I was kind of like, I really thought that I recycled them all. So I was like kind of a little disappointed, because I was like, I don't know if there was anything in there. Like, I didn't even think I'd ever went through them to be like, I wanted to save this, or I wanted to save that, or whatever. But if it turns out that I did wind up saving it. So that's what I was doing today. I ended up going through all of my English stuff and all of my, which was 2 semesters worth of English papers. And I kept almost none of that, because most of the stuff that like I did, like I still have saved on my flash drive. Like it was all my school stuff, like school papers, saved on my flash drive from like my school flash drive that I had. And so it was like all, like none of this stuff from like my, what's it called, my English class. I actually think there were, for some reason, there was 3 folders worth of my English stuff. I don't know why I had 3, and I only took 2 semesters. So there were 3 of those. I ended up not going through one of them. I went through 2 of them, and then I did wind up going through, like, I had one that was like for my my digital like design, or I forget what it's called exactly, but it was like my computer digital design class, which I loved that class. It was like my favorite, one of my favorite classes. And honestly too, the weird thing is that I actually took more classes, like because I took 2 like history classes that year, and so it was a little confusing, but one was only for 1 semester, the other was for both semesters. But because of that, like it was a little bit of a tougher schedule for like my sophomore year. But I ended up actually like remembering that that was probably one of my favorite years of high school, just because I felt like all those classes that I took, like I really liked those classes. Whereas like my senior year, I don't remember what, yeah, I didn't really take any classes that I think I liked, because like I had to take consumer ed, I had to take American government, which like you were supposed to take those, the way that I think the scheduling was supposed to work was you were supposed to take one semester and then the other semester, but mine ended up both in my second semester. And so it was like and on top of that too, I had no study hall, whereas I had study hall my first semester and then none my second semester, which is where the one that you'd feel like you needed it more if you were like had more classes. But they like replaced it with that, because I knew I wasn't going to be taking a second semester study hall, because I wanted to take, forget which class, which honestly maybe even didn't need to take the class I ended up taking. I think I took drafting, which I really liked, but the only reason I wanted to take that was so that I could take I think it was like architecture, or like something like blueprints, which I really liked, like designing, like, you know, like I don't know, like blueprints, you know, like houses and stuff like that, because I took an interior design class my freshman year, and then realized I actually liked the like doing like, again, like the drafting aspect of it more, like doing, you know, like designing the house and doing blueprints and all that kind of stuff. So you had to take drafting in order to take like the, I forget what the other class was, but like I said, it was like, I don't want to say it was called blueprints, but like, you know, something like that, where it was like that was the focus on it. Just, but the first like class that you had to take was so that you could learn the program. So I took that, but I knew I was taking it and not taking the second part, which was what I actually wanted to take. And so I think I wanted to take that though like my freshman year, and so that was one of like the options on my list. And so then when my counselor was like, oh, like what classes do you want to take, I was like, oh yeah, I'll take that one. And then I realized I'm not taking like the actual parts that I wanted to take, like to learn about, like, so we just ended up doing like random, like it was just like, I don't know, like just different, like, you know, learning how to use, again, the program that we were using for like the drafting, which was kind of cool, but it was more just like, we were learning how to do like pieces of like, you know, like equipment or stuff like that. It was never like we got to like design a house or anything, which is what I really wanted to do and I thought was really cool. But yeah, like I said, that was kind of, I didn't plan that out. So while I probably could have taken a different class or something, you know, like I said, that was a little bit better, that I might have actually liked more, but instead of taking the first part of it with the intention of not, you know, wanting to take the second part but then not being able to. So anyways though, like I said, I think that my sophomore year though was the year that I took all the classes that I actually like really liked. And the weird thing is too is that I absolutely love history now. I hated it in high school, and I think that, and I want to say it was my teachers, because all of my teachers had very different teaching styles that I had when I was like a like all throughout like all of my years. The only one that, and like I don't know, it was just the constant having to write things down and scribble things down and like taking notes so much that like I didn't like if our like classrooms across, like this is like from elementary school, middle school, and high school, if it was more like interactive, I felt like I would have liked it. Or if it was a little bit more like student led, like we got to pick like, okay, like, you know, we're learning about, you know, this timeline in history or whatever, like what are some points that like you want to learn about, or, you know, what are some things that you want to do, instead of it just being like, here's what you have to do and here are all your notes that you have to take. And like, and even though again some of the teachers kind of had different styles of teaching, which were maybe more fun than some of the others, it was still, everything ended up coming down to note taking, and that was like really annoying to me. Like I just was not a good note taker either. And like again, some of it was just like, oh, like here's the PowerPoint presentation and you just have to fill in the blanks kind of from like what the presentation was, and then you got the printout and you just had to like fill in the blanks or whatever, which was pretty simple. But it was still just like then it was just lecturing too, and like I just, again, and sometimes teachers would show movies and would do this or whatever, but they were always just super boring movies. They weren't anything that was like entertaining. Like I remember like a handful of actually really interesting sort of like when we learned about the lost colony of Roanoke, I learned about that in like 6th grade, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I was like, oh my gosh, like these people like really just like up and disappeared, like, you know. And so like that makes you want to like do more research into it because you're like curious about it. But nothing, I think, in any of my history classes, very few ended up ever sparking that curiosity to make me want to learn more about it. It was just like I had to learn that. But like I said, it wasn't like I wanted to learn more, or I wanted to learn this thing or that thing about history or whatever. So like I said, I think that that was why I didn't like it. And now that I'm older, when I end up watching like documentaries and stuff like that, or doing my own research. I mean, you guys know I asked for books on ancient Egypt for Christmas because again, that's like something that sparks my curiosity. And so, you know, like, but that was something that like I don't ever remember learning about in any of my history classes. I also really love American history too, and like really anything within kind of the last 100 years. It doesn't just have to necessarily be American history, but like that's the focus of, obviously it's where I live, so it's kind of the focus of what I was taught in school. And so like I know a lot and more about that, but learning about again too like the last 100 or so years of like British history, and you know, like again any other kind of European country or in any other country that's just not the US, you know, again I find those like very interesting, like especially too like China and Japan and stuff like that. Even like older history from that I find, you know, very interesting because the documentation of that was also like really good over the last, you know, like couple 100 years. And so like I said, I find that kind of stuff very interesting. But even in learning, like again too, my sophomore year I took American history. There wasn't a lot in that class that ever made me go like, oh, I really want to like look up or learn more about this or that or whatever. Like there's very few things that ever really stuck out in my mind from like, again, remembering back on that class that I can, like I said, really remember about that class. And like I said though, the 6th grade when we were learning, we didn't learn about the lost colony of Roanoke. We just ended up reading like a printout from like a book or whatever about it. We didn't like spend like a whole unit on it or whatever, but it was just like a printout. But I remember the reading from that. We ended up doing another one about the Dust Bowl. I still remember about that too, and I think it was just the way that that like book or whatever that we were reading about was, that like again too, it just like I remembered it really well. Maybe it was the questions that were asked too that went along with the like, you know, the reading and stuff like that, but I know that it was from the same like book, like both of those were. And so like I said, that's why I still can remember like what that was about. But again, like the stuff from my sophomore year, my American history class, and also too I took like topics in modern history, which again too wasn't just US history, it was like the broad kind of, and that was the one I only took for 1 semester, because that was actually I think supposed to be like, I switched because that was the year before when I was homeschooled, so like they switched. I took Illinois history when I was homeschooled, and so since it wasn't like what the school like required or whatever, I had to take that. So I took that, and it was only 1 semester, and then I had to take the American government, which was American history, which was actually what I was supposed to be taking. I keep saying my sophomore year. That was my junior year. I think I've said my sophomore year the entire time. It was my junior year. My sophomore year I was homeschooled. But that was actually, I liked those classes too I had when I was homeschooled because I got to pick them. Like instead of taking like a traditional like science class, I think I was supposed to take chemistry, but I took marine biology, which I thought was really cool and like interesting. And actually biology is one of my least favorite subjects, but again too because there was a lot of like projects and like experiments and stuff like that that you got to do, it was actually really interesting. And the same thing too with like the Illinois history, there's a lot that I actually do. It was focused a lot more like on essay writing though, so I didn't like that quite as much. And there wasn't like a lot of like resource material, like it was just kind of like you go and kind of find out, you know, the things about like they give you like a brief kind of thing about like the people, but there wasn't a lot of like resources that you could like go out of your way to like, they didn't give them to you like, oh, you know, use this book or go to these websites and learn more about it. It was just like kind of just like what their writing was, so I wasn't entirely in love with that. And then like I said too, it's normally just like write an essay now afterwards, so I didn't, like I said, I didn't like that much, but it's just because it was more boring having to do it that way. Because it was more student driven, I felt like I actually liked being like, I retained still a lot of like, I know who actually founded Illinois, I know like early Illinois history, like I still know a lot about that because of that, you know, like I said, it was very like gonna stick in your head kind of thing. Whereas like I said, most of the stuff from my junior year in American history, I couldn't tell you a lot of the stuff that I actually remember from that class. Now I went back since I've been, you know, out of school and actually learned probably way more, you know, than I ever did in that class. And again too, stuff that I didn't retain up until I was like, oh yeah, it sounds kind of familiar, and then I was like, oh okay, you know. And then like I said, I ended up learning a lot more about that. Like I know a lot of like kind of the timeline of everything that ended up happening between the 1890s to pretty much right now, like fairly well. And so, and that was no thanks to, like I said, any of those classes I really took in school. It was all my own research and my own you know, like I said, curiosity into history. So like I said, that's why sometimes some classes really like hit for people and they're just like, they learn really well from those kind of things, or the teachers or whatever. But then there's also sometimes, you know, in like curriculum, and then, you know, because like I said, I think I had some pretty decent teachers, but it was just unfortunately like the way they had to teach it, you know. And maybe it was also too like the resources that I had available to them too. Like we kind of had to do, again, like a PowerPoint. Like those were all my history teachers ever did, was PowerPoint, except I will say my my freshman year, although I wasn't a huge fan of my freshman year teacher. It was keep wanting to say geometry. That's not right. It was geography. And like the teacher's classes were much more interactive. Like, and we got to do, like, it was always switching it up. Like, we'd be reading, we'd be doing something, like, it was very like different than I felt like the other classes were, where it seemed like it was always the same thing. But I didn't really like geography, even though I do like geography and I'm very good at geography. Like, I could tell you where everything is pretty much on a map, like every country, maybe not every country, but definitely every state. I can definitely place all 50 states perfectly. I was actually in 7th grade though. I was quizzed on that. But you know, like I said, like geography wise, like I'm really good with like all of, like, I know, like, at least if I can't tell you exactly where the country is, I could probably tell you like it's really close to that country. If it's not touching it, it's gonna be really close to it. Like, I could probably at least get you really close if you needed me to get you there. Like I said, but I'm not like my dad. Literally, we were cracking up because my dad thought that New York was closer to Florida than it was to actual New York. Just kind of funny. So like I said, it's just, you know, there's, like I said, certain ways people teach and some stuff hits for some people and some doesn't. And again, some curriculum does and some doesn't. And like I said too, like books, like the way, like I said, we learned it in like 6th grade. Like there was that one, like I said, book that had those different stories in it that for some reason to this day I still remember that. But again too, what I learned in my junior year for most of those classes, can't really remember those. And again too, history is my favorite, probably next to math. Was actually my favorite subject in school and the one that I was the best at. And I still am really good and really like math, but I will have to say probably I'm more interested in history than, like, I don't just randomly, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do a math problem today, whereas like I'll actually watch a documentary on history. You know, so I use math, again, probably just as often making my grocery list, making, you know, whatever, like, you know, again, measuring the stuff for my new bedroom and making sure everything's gonna fit well and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, I use that somewhat in daily life. I'm not normally randomly like, I'm gonna do some geometry, you know, like equations and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, like I said, I will probably watch you know, a documentary on something history related that I actually really do like. But that is all to say that the box, I went through a good portion of it today. I didn't completely end up finishing it, but, and it wasn't a huge box, but I was really like detailed, like going through every single paper, so it was going to definitely take me a while. So I'm hoping that if I can get through maybe that box and the other box this week, that'll be a really good, like 2 more boxes out of the attic kind of thing, and then we'll, you know, we can kind of keep moving along again. And that's like something that I can personally take care of because they're my school papers, whereas like, again, some of the other stuff that's in the attic, I gotta kind of wait for my dad, you know, his help, or, you know, again too, like my mom, you know, asking her like, what is this stuff, do you want to keep this, you know, whatever. So anyways, like, you know, stuff that I can't necessarily do on my own, but the papers, school papers, I can go through those. So that's what I'm hoping, is to get through that stuff, and, you know, like I said, we can keep moving on some of the other things. So either way, guys, I will see you all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.